John D. Villarreal, get ready. We are about. I gotta work with my video settings. I'm not sure I like this. Anyway, we'll deal with that. We're about ready to go on the air for here Newstalk 1040 AM live at Alfa Romeo Maserati of Sarasota. So we're about a minute out. Stand by.
Podcast is a paid program and does not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of Genesis Communications, its management, staff, or advertisers. Welcome to the John Villarreal Show. Now, here's John.
Hey everybody, what's going on? It's me, John D. Villarreal, and we are live on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, and X, and of course, 1040 News Talk, 1040 audience all around the greater Tampa Bay area. I'm live right now at Alfa Romeo Maserati of Sarasota. This show is sponsored by Alfa Romeo Maserati of Sarasota and Sarasota Subaru. What a week, players. Oh my goodness. Unbelievable. What a week, what a week, what a week. There's so much to talk about. We're going to be joined by Paul at Villarreal. If you want to call in the program, you can call in at 727-587-1040. 727-587-1040. Lots to talk about. We got to talk about Nikki Haley. We have to talk about what happened there in South Carolina, because don't let anybody fool you. Don't let anybody gaslight you. That was a blowout. The favored daughter of South Carolina, the former governor of South Carolina, the person whose home is in South Carolina, got trounced by President Trump. Trounced. And honestly, this Haley campaign has become very negative, very personal. But she lost by about 20 points in her home state. And it's like, well, 40% is not 50%, but 40% is a lot of people. Like, okay, it's a two-person race. I mean, when you had, Ted Cruz and these other people, you had these other people that were actually winning their home states. It's a big deal. It's a cardinal rule in politics. It's not a joke. It's a big deal. We have to talk about that. We're going to talk about Super Tuesday. We're going to talk about Ronna Romney McDaniel, in my opinion, the former chair, well, I guess the current chair of the RNC is stepping down. We're going to have new leadership there. And in fact, one of the Trump family may go in there. We have other people talking about the 8th Amendment. We have a lot of people weighing in. Kevin O'Leary, Grant Cardone, about the judgment against President Trump in New York. People are not happy about that. People want to talk about that. They're going to talk about that. They're appealing. Trump has appealed that case from Judge Engoron. We also have to talk about what's going on in Russia. We're talking about Bill Ackman. Bill Ackman has just, the hedge fund magnate, the Harvard graduate, the one who has been railing against former President Claudine Gay, and what's going on with some issues, some serious potential issues there at Harvard, is also going and really has a lot of things to say about President Biden. And it just very, very sharp comments. There's so much going on. It's not even funny. I'm telling you right now, let's bring in Paul Villarreal right now, because Paul Villarreal, this guy is up and coming on Twitter, on X. It wasn't long ago the dude was stealth. I told him you got to come out of stealth. You got to decloak. We had the whole show on that. Every time we put something up, we're talking about 1,000+ views on X on that. The guy had 16,000 followers, maybe 15,000. Then he clipped to 16.5. Now he's at 17,000. I mean, it's like an auctioneering going on over there. Paul, what's happening right now? Give me the latest and greatest on X, and give me the latest and greatest on what's happening with this whole South Carolina primary. It was a big deal.
Yeah, let's talk about the South Carolina primary, because there's been a bunch of spin put out there, supposedly that Trump didn't do as well or as he thought, or this type of thing. As you said, it's a 20-point race. He won 59-39. He won 43 out of 46 counties in the state. He won 6 out of 7 congressional districts. Won 47 out of 50 delegates total, and he set a record for the most primary votes gotten by a candidate. I mean, what else do you want? This is Nikki Haley's home state, where I believe she was a 2-term governor. She got blown out, and there's no way to spin that. There's no way around it. And the race was called 1 minute after the polls closed. You can't get more of a comprehensive victory than what President Trump achieved in that contest.
I totally agree with you. There's no doubt about it. I mean, you're talking about Nikki Haley now has, let's just be very, 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 very clear about this. Has lost Iowa, has lost New Hampshire. That was where she was endorsed by Governor Chris Sununu. She has lost Nevada. She not only did she lose Nevada, she got morally and not morally. How do I say that? From a morale standpoint, but just really punked because not on the ballot beat Nikki Haley. That's where we're not on the ballot beat Nikki Haley in Nevada. So let's not forget Nevada and that total fiasco. Has now lost her home state of South Carolina. Those are the early states. That's where the insurgent, the up-and-coming candidates can make some noise, really focus the resources. She spent almost, not her, but I mean, almost $75 million, almost $750 million has been spent on the Nikki Haley campaign that has produced 0 wins. And now going in Super Tuesday, how is she going to be able to compete in all those contests and defend in all those contests? There is no state where she's anywhere near close. Paul, give me the scope here. What do we expect for Super Tuesday, and what's going on with Nikki Haley? What is the plan? Because a lot of people out there are thinking now she's just waiting for something, maybe whether the judgment or whether, but something potentially disqualifying to happen to President Trump, maybe, or is she just playing spoiler? And in fact, no labels now. The sort of the kind of middle of the road, the independent, this sort of upstart group that's a little bit, kind of feels a little never Trumpish. I mean, is saying like, yeah, come on, Nikki Haley, we'd love you over here. Are you running for the Republicans? Or are you running for something else? And this is what I said before about politicians that switch parties and stuff like that. Is it about you? Is it about the cause? Or is it about them? Does it even matter? It's like someone in the Super Bowl saying, oh, you know what? I'm tired of playing at halftime. I'm tired of playing for San Francisco. I'm going to go over here to Kansas City because it looks like they're going to win. So I'm just going to join the winning team. Paul, what do you make of what's going on with Nikki Haley? What is her strategy? Why is she still in this race?
Well, 2 other quick things. I believe that Nikki Haley, based on an exit polling, received that Republicans, like declared Republicans, or people who identify themselves as Republicans, were less than 30% of her vote in South Carolina. So that gives you an idea where her votes were coming from. Also, President Trump is the first non-incumbent. I don't know if this is just for Republican candidates or Democrat candidates, but he's the first non-incumbent to win the first 4 primary or caucus states. That's never happened before. So again, this concept that he's weak or weakened or any of this, none of that holds up to any scrutiny at all. As far as where Nikki Haley is at, I don't know. I'm not sure. There are people out there like Ari Fleischer who have said that he believes that Nikki Haley is going to go and run third party, I guess, with the No Labels group, as you mentioned them. We're going to have to see. I think that if she were to do that, that just would seem to be a real poor decision for her political future. Why would you go third party if you're planning to run as a Republican or even as a Democrat in the future as a presidential candidate? Why would you do that? So I don't really get the strategy there, but I don't know. We have to see. And now somebody from the Haley campaign did write Ari Fleischer after he said that and say, no, we're not looking at that. So we're going to have to find out what happens. You mentioned Super Tuesday. Look, right now, from all the polls that I have seen, Trump is positioned, I think it's 15 states. He's positioned to win everything and probably win it fairly handily. The New York Times did an analysis. They believe that Trump is on track to win 90% of the Super Tuesday delegates. That's just overwhelming. And I know that his campaign believes that they may be in a position to get the necessary delegates to win the nomination or claim the nomination by March 19th. So this is all a pretty short clock that we're looking at here. We're talking within a month here. And I think that's kind of where things are at right now.
Incredible. No doubt about it. I mean, I just don't get this whole Nikki Haley thing. I'm not trying to generalize or anything like that, but I just harken back to it. It really feels like Reese Witherspoon in election. It really feels like a bad, high school senior class president or student body president type of election. Someone's even said that Nikki Haley doesn't know how to get out. I think that she's very ambitious. I think it's someone that will, we've seen her flip. We've seen her just openly change policies, and get caught. I hate to say it, not remembering, lying. I don't know. I'm not alleging anything. I don't know how to characterize it. But I mean, she's been caught, over and over again by Vivek Ramaswamy, by CNN, by others. There's this tape out there, or this video, Paul, you'll probably remember, you'll probably be able to cite it, where it just shows the extreme flip-flops of Nikki Haley. And that just tells me this is someone that's just going to do whatever, maybe, allegedly. I'm not alleging anything. Let me put it another way. It's hard to have confidence in convictions when you see something like that, okay? That's number one. Number two is, there just seems to be this Pollyannish, real daydreamy, up in the clouds, not in touch with reality at all aspect to the campaign. I don't get it. And they keep going back to this identity politics. And Vivek Ramaswamy called her out on that. And now you've got Vivek that was very smart, and he is the smartest of the bunch, in my opinion, in terms of the non-Trump candidates. Obviously, President Trump, very, very smart as well. Wharton graduate. And, Vivek Ramaswamy, you're talking about Harvard and Yale, and not unlike Governor Ronnie D, heavy D, Ronnie, Governor Ron, who is heavy in terms of the list of historical governors that have really had the heavy impact with this state, has really led this state to great heights now. I mean, Florida is an absolute destination for business, for people coming over here and everything like that. But both of those two are on the campaign trail for Trump. And Governor DeSantis did the right thing, and he got out there to in my opinion, got out there to South Carolina and was stumping for Trump. What are we doing with Nikki Haley? What is she doing? I just don't, I keep saying the same thing over and over again, but I just don't get it. Paul, politically wise, I don't see any future. This is the longer this goes, the more damaging for Nikki Haley. I think Nikki Haley really made a big, big mistake with staying in and losing her home state by that much, number one. And number two, by continuing to be negative on Trump and just attacking Trump. It's a really bad look. And the longer it goes, the more she's looking like a Democrat, or at least a tool for the Democrats and the Democratic donors. And in fact, I believe, Gavin Newsom was saying straight up that basically Nikki Haley is basically helping the Democrats right now. What do you make of all that? What are your comments?
Yeah, Gavin Newsom said that essentially, I believe what he said was that Nikki Haley is like the Democrats' best surrogate, or one of their best surrogates against Trump. So that kind of gives you an idea of where the Democrats are coming from with regards to her. Look, she's being funded by, apparently, Democrat donors. The goal seems to be to try to weaken or kind of cut down Trump a little bit, if possible, heading into the general election, with no possible hope or no real hope that Nikki Haley can win the nomination, except for, as you mentioned earlier, if something, a legal issue or something befell President Trump. Now, so that seems to be where things are coming from. You mentioned about flip-flopping. One of the videos that's out there, there's several of them, but one of the videos that's out there about her and flip-flopping is her talking about, I believe, the South Carolina state gas tax. And for a while, when she was governor, she said she would not institute a gas tax no matter what, or something to that effect, and then she did. And then she tried to put it through, or she did put it through. And so that's just one instance. And she does seem to have challenges with kind of maintaining or properly talking about her positions in the past, even more so than a number of other politicians do. Particularly Trump. I mean, Trump will defend different things that he's said. He'll pretty much stick with what his views were. Haley does not seem like that. She seems much more reflexive in saying that she didn't do something if she thinks it's politically damaging to her. So that is an issue. And I think Team Trump has definitely been working to point that out to people over and over again.
Got you. That's very, very important. Very good comments right there. I mean, it took me a second there, and I apologize to the audience because I was doing some research while Paul was talking, and I'm seeing this on Real Clear Politics, and this is what's so insane. We've got Nikki Haley here, quote, "I've said over and over again, I have no interest in a third-party candidacy," unquote. Okay, so that tells me a couple of things. Number one, I have no idea what the strategy is here, other than, like, you're going to damage Trump, Trump loses, you set yourself up for 2028, and this is basically like the Bush Republicans, the Republican Party of 30 years ago, who thinks they're going to take things over. McConnell, we're going to crush the Tea Party and take things over, and we're going to be in charge of the establishment. I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's just very, very strange. I don't know what it is. But the fact that she has to say that, Paul, and now come out and say, means that people are getting very uneasy and people are asking questions. And whatever Nikki Haley's doing, in my opinion, is not working. Her having to make that statement just shows that a lot of people on the Republican side potentially may feel like she's disloyal, that this is out of bounds. This is going a bit too far. It would almost be like Joe Manchin's running and keeps running and just slamming Biden. And that's what you have to do. Think about this, right? To make sense to our liberal friends and audience members out there in whether it's on LinkedIn, X, YouTube, Facebook, but also particularly and most importantly on Newstalk 1040 audience out there for the John D. Villarreal radio show. And I know that we probably have a lot of those great listeners out there. Think about if Joe Manchin was running against President Biden right now and was just ripping him up and down, this and that, whatever, hasn't won anything, doesn't matter, I'm staying in, raised almost, getting close to over $75 million and just isn't winning anything, ripping Biden, we're not getting out. People are saying, they should run as an independent, Oh, no, yeah, I'm not going to do that, but you're just being negative. Like you would have to ask, like, what are you doing? I mean, we can't even get a debate between RFK Jr. and Biden. They don't want to talk about Cornel West. They don't want to talk about Jill Stein. They don't want to talk about all, that kind of stuff. But they love Nikki Haley, the press meaning, the mainstream media. What is going on here, Paul? I think people are asking questions, and I just don't know how much longer Nikki Haley can do this past Super Tuesday, Paul.
The reason why Nikki Haley has to come out now and talk about that she's not going to go third party is because there doesn't appear to be any viable path for her to win the nomination. So if you cannot possibly win the nomination by delegates, what are you doing? And I think that's what people are just kind of naturally coming to the conclusion of. In fact, Americans for Prosperity, which has supported her a bit, that's the Koch network, they came out, I think, today and said, we're not funding her anymore. Why? Because we can't see how it's going to help her have any real shot at the nomination. So there is a question. You can't win. So what are you doing? Why are you staying in? And somebody, you have compared her, and others have compared her before, to John Kasich, former governor of Ohio. Somebody made a very good point. At least John Kasich won the state of Ohio.
Right.
Nikki Haley got blown out in her own state. This is the candidacy makes no sense, and it makes zero, even less sense after the South Carolina primary. But look, the good news about this is that I think all of this will be sorted out significantly after Super Tuesday, because if it goes the way it looks like it's going to go, then it's just, I mean, it will be even clearer where things stand. Now, I will give Haley credit for this. She's going and doing rallies like every single day right now. She's going to a couple rallies soon in Michigan. She's doing a rally in Colorado. So she's going to work those areas, which seem to be kind of Democrat areas, from looking at the states, the cities that she's chosen. So she's trying, but again, you can't. It just doesn't look like there's any realistic chance. I don't doubt her
work ethic. Sorry, Paul. I don't doubt her work ethic. I don't doubt that she's out there trying. But this, to me, even more than Kasich at this point, and that was bad in my opinion, and went on way too long. But this really feels like a very selfish, and I'm not the only one that has said this. I think this has been written. This feels like a very selfish vanity campaign right now. This looks like it's to the amount that it had, to the extent that it has impact, seems very destructive to the Republican Party. You can't, on the one hand, same thing with the conservative Inc., neocons, whatever, like, you know, fill in the blank, the magazine writers, the cruisers, and stuff like that. You can't, and listen, we love everybody. You know, peace, love, freedom, opportunity for everyone, not generalizing everything like that. But like, you can't sit here and the establishment, the GOPE. Let's stay with that. Let's revise and extend the GOPE. The establishment, the uniparty, whatever, you know, if it, to the extent that it even exists, we're not alleging anything, there's no conspiracy, blah, blah, blah. But the country club establishment, the establishment Republicans, the GOPE, the insiders, the ruling class, as Anthony Codevilla would say, Professor Codevilla, you can't on the one hand say, this is the most important election, or as the Democrats, democracy's on the ballot and all that kind of stuff. And then you're doing these shenanigans. You on the one hand are the big, the true conservative. That was the big knock against Trump. He's a New York liberal. He's fake. He's not going to do it before he's doing. So these are the true conservatives, and they'll tell you what a true conservative they are. And yet you're going to do this, and when you know everything's pointed, this hurts us, this doesn't help us. How does this help us? How does this even help Haley's campaign? She does not understand, I don't believe, and this is when, you know, President Trump calls her bird brain. I don't know if it's just a total self-obsession and a selfishness. But Paul, I'm a political expert, communication expert, broadcast. I don't understand. This is so damaging to the Nikki Haley brand. It's not even funny. Like, I talked to some great folks today who are, you know, supporters of Nikki Haley, stuff like that, and they're like, you couldn't defend it. You couldn't defend it. We may actually have them on the air here at some point soon. We're very, very tight on time here. What do you think is going on with Nikki Haley? Do you think this is there a plan behind this? Is this all about her? Is someone pulling the strings? What is your pure speculation? We're not alleging anything, pure speculation opinion.
I think what you said previously is right on the mark, quote unquote, vanity campaign. That's what this looks like. And sometimes people get caught up in their own hype, their own press, and that could be happening here. And I just want to tell you this just came across the wires. Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg is seeking a gag order on President Trump before the Stormy Daniels trial, which starts next month. So we've seen that before. Maybe we'll talk about that more in coming up.
Wow, unreal. It just gets better and better. It gets better and better here on the John D. Villarreal radio show on Newstalk 1040 a.m. and all around the greater Tampa area. Also live on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, and X. Stay tuned, players. Segment 1 is down. Segment 2 will be ready to go in about 6 minutes. Listen to these important messages, and we'll be right back at you. I'm broadcasting live at Alfa Romeo Maserati of Sarasota. We'll talk to you soon.
Tampa Bay.
What's going on, everybody? John D. Villarreal here. John D. Villarreal Radio Show on Newstalk 1040, all around the greater Tampa Bay area. Live on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, and X. Oh my goodness, we're talking about so many things right now. We're talking about Nikki Haley. We can't understand what she's doing. I don't know if she knows what she's doing, honestly. I mean, we can see that by the results. If you're talking an ROI, yeah, I don't know if you measure it that way or whatever, but in terms of like campaign expenditures versus states want, it's not looking super hot right now, and there's a lot of things going on there. We're also talking to Paul F. Villarreal here. Paul is talking about a lot of different things, and there's so much going on right now. We're getting to a point now, in my opinion, and I don't know how much we're going to get into this, but we'll definitely talk about some of this. We also have to talk about the RNC, and I think that's what we're going to talk about a lot this segment. But I do want to touch on, we're getting to a point now where this war in Ukraine and the war over there in the Middle East, I think we're going to see a new phase here, maybe. I mean, I don't know anything. I'm purely speculating. But it definitely feels like, that things are going to take a shifting here. This is a very critical juncture of economically, foreign policy wise. There's a lot of stuff going on, and no less than Bill Ackman. Bill Ackman, the hedge fund magnate, the Harvard graduate, the billionaire, has said this quote: "Biden is done. I mean, it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing for a country having him as a presidential candidate, let alone the president. It's crazy, and it's just going to get worse." Paul, what do you make of what Bill Ackman has said about President Biden? And do you feel that we're going to see a new phase of I'll probably save the RNC stuff for the next hour now that I think about it. Do you feel like we're going to see a new phase of operations in, Ukraine and also in the Middle East? And to the extent that things could be winding down, could get hopefully some peaceful settlement in these different foreign conflicts, why is the Senate trying to send, so much more money? Almost, what is it, close to $100 billion over there? What are we doing? What's going on, Paul? What's the state of this administration and the policies?
Well, the first thing about Ackman, look, he apparently, I believe he's supporting, what's that man's name, Dean Phillips? I think the guy's name is, kind of like a very low level or low profile other Democrat candidates. I believe that's who Ackman is supporting. However, Ackman is coming from a position where a lot of Democrats, especially prominent Democrats, have been coming from. They're concerned about Biden as a candidate, I think, more than as much as anything. And you and I both know, because we've talked about this many times between ourselves, there is a percentage of the electorate, of both sides, but particularly, well, there's many in the Democrat side that are part of this, where, in my opinion, they want to be with the cool kids. They want to be with the people that make them look good. If President Biden is going out and stumbling around and struggling and having difficulty with his speeches, and maybe doesn't look that vigorous and all, well, maybe that doesn't make everybody that supports him look that great. And I don't care about that, but there are people who do care about that. And President Obama was slick, and he was charismatic, and he had energy, and he was young and zestful and everything, and Biden isn't that. And so if you're concerned about those type of kind of superficial things, Biden's probably not your guy. Now, I don't know if that's where Ackman's coming from or not, but what he said, I mean, it's pretty clear about what he said, which is, look, this guy isn't cutting it, and it's not going to get any better. And that's a very powerful and influential man who has donated a lot to Democrats over the years. That's very important. That's not a joke that he's saying that. Coming to the Middle East and to Russia, I think Russia is gaining in Ukraine. They just took a very important city. I can't remember, and I don't know exactly how it's pronounced, Advika, I think is the way that you say it. and that was under siege for months, and Russia's basically gained it. They are advancing right now. They are on the move. However, a diplomat with Serbia, and I can't remember who it is, it might have been the president, has said, just recently said in the last few days, that he has heard talk in EU/NATO circles that there's a chance that EU or NATO forces could be heading to Ukraine as part of a bilateral agreement. Well, if that happens, things are going to get much more, or could get a lot more dug in, because I think that would be the only type of circumstance that could have a possible chance of changing the balance of what is happening right now, which is, in my opinion, Russia is winning, and it's simply a matter of how long is it going to take them to achieve their ends. If NATO troops are sent in, that could alter the dynamic. Would it be enough to stop Russia? I don't know. But it certainly would change the landscape of things. As far as the Middle East, look, I think we've talked about this on the show. Biden is in a difficult position with this. He's getting pulled from both sides. He's getting pulled from the pro-Israel side, and he's getting pulled from the pro-Palestinian side. He's trying to thread the needle on that. It appears Prime Minister Netanyahu was on Face the Nation yesterday on CBS, and he essentially said, look, he sounded like they wanted to go ahead with the operation or potential operation into Rafah. And so, if that happens, that's going to drag things out, and people are going to be very unhappy. I also think that they just did strikes in southern Lebanon against what they said were Hezbollah attack positions. So Netanyahu believes that Hamas is down to its last kind of handful of military battalions, and that things could be starting to, after this operation, possibly in Rafah, things could start winding down, or the hot part of the conflict could start winding down. I don't know. And I don't know if that's true or not, and I don't know if Biden and the United States is going to go along with that plan. It's a very difficult, it's a very stressful situation, and really, to be honest with you, I'm not sure what's going to happen there. We just have to see what happens.
Sorry about that. I had myself on mute. My apologies. It looks like, I think I saw something there where it was something to the effect of Netanyahu saying that if they do go into Rafah, it's going to kind of be the beginning of the end. And that's my rough paraphrase, not an exact quote by any stretch. And also, now we're sending a lot of, the U.S. Senate is trying to send a lot of money over there to, Israel, and also to Ukraine. Why are we doing that? What's going on with all that? I don't understand that. That makes a really, how do we win in that? Sorry about that. I'm getting people blowing up my phone and everything. How do we get that happening? How does that make sense? Why, when we're talking about these things winding down, what is going on? You know what I mean? I don't get it. Why are we talking about almost $100 billion, $60 billion, $100 billion? Just a ton of money, Paul. What is the rationale on that? And thank goodness Speaker Johnson's we're not doing that.
Look, this is just my own opinion, and again, I have no inside information or anything like this. My personal belief with what is happening with Ukraine, and this kind of turn, of course, came when they wanted to win the government, particularly Democrats, but also people in this Republicans in the Senate in the last 2 weeks or so wanted to ramp through this this spending bill that you're talking about. And then we had the unfortunate passing of Navalny, and there's just been different kind of things kind of like seeming to creep things up in this regard. My own opinion is, and I've said this on Twitter, I don't think that Ukraine can win the conflict as currently constituted. As I said, could they win if you bring in NATO or you bring in forces? I don't know, maybe. But Russia has such an advantage at this point in time, and Ukraine's military is so drained in terms of just manpower and the right age and the right capability of forces that I just don't see how it's going to be possible. It feels to me, just my own feel, it feels like there's a political element to this. And I don't know if it's about the election. I don't know if it's about people want to keep doing whatever they're doing in Ukraine. I'm talking about our people on our side, people that have investments or interest in Ukraine. I'm not sure what it is. But I think to many observers, this conflict seems like it's decided, or it looks like it's going to be decided in one direction. And so I'm not sure what the goal is here to perpetuate this. And as we've talked about before, war is difficult. There's been a lot of lives lost. So I'm not sure what I don't know what you're going to get out of dragging this out, I guess is the easiest way to say it.
No doubt about it. And beyond that, it's like, what's the rationale? Like, I don't understand what the rationale. And you've got, again, getting back to the whole Nikki Haley campaign, she seems to be for this Ukraine funding, like in these different foreign conflicts. Like, what's going on? I mean, and you had Lindsey Graham, Senator Graham, up there who's also kind of like, seems to be very hawkish. I don't know what's beyond hawkish, super hawk, eagle. I don't know. I mean, you know what I mean? Like what are we? It's like Angry Birds. It's like, what was that guy's name? Oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm blanking. My daughter loves that movie. It's like, he was booed. Senator Graham was booed. How do you support this from a financial standpoint? Meanwhile, people can't even afford anything. The middle class is shrinking. That is factually, the data is out. The middle class is shrinking. People are getting crushed here in Florida with high inflation, insurance rates going up, home prices up, so many different things, car price. I mean, so many different things are up, and you're going to spend. They say, hey, we can't take care of these students with the student loans. Oh, we can't do that, even though the graduating pandemic. And I'm not arguing one way or the other on that. Full disclosure, I've got student loans. Okay, so there's my situation there, if you will, in the aim of transparency. But when you're talking about we can't afford a border, we can't border security, we can't afford fill in the blank, and then you have $100 billion or whatever. Some people said it could be up to $1 trillion. It's a lot of money, whatever it is. I don't know what the number is. I can't tell you exactly what the number is. I'm not the accountant. I'm not the congressional budgeting office or anything like that. But there's a lot of money, and there's been a lot of money that continues to be sent over there. And meanwhile, you've got migrants that are hanging out in hotels, in gyms and schools in Chicago and around the country, in D.C. and New York City. I mean, these sanctuary cities, now all of a sudden maybe their residents might feel a little bit differently about it. So what I'm saying is, how do you justify the expenditure, the ongoing expenditure, when not unlike the Haley campaign, it doesn't seem like there's a there to win. And I don't know if we know how to get out, particularly in an election year where this could look very bad for President Biden, this administration, in my opinion. Paul, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I agree with you. Look, I think that you're starting to see real discontent, political discontent and I've seen this, and polls are picking this up, among minority or lower income communities, because as you pointed out, I'm talking about for the immigration issue, the border issue. Why?
Right.
Because as you said, people are starting to be displaced. People are getting their schools, their locales are being kind of co-opted to work with, accommodate some of these people coming in. For example, Fox just had on they had on a panel of 5 people who live in Harlem, and all of them are like, "Look, we don't know what's going on. Why are the resources going out to these people coming in? We've been here the whole time. They're converting, I guess, a school into kind of a migrant shelter." So it's like it's becoming a very tangible thing. As we've talked about, ourselves and on the show previously, it's very easy to look at these issues in a kind of pie in the sky type of way when the issues are far away from you and don't affect you in any way. Of course, everybody wants to help people. Everybody wants to treat people well. But when you start getting into the brass tacks of it and you're dealing with it in your backyard, it becomes a different issue. And that's what I think we're starting to see, where the border concerns are getting the most traction with some of the people on that are living in the most difficult circumstances, because it's starting to affect them personally. And we're going to have to track that as things go forward, because I think that's a huge vulnerability for President Biden. Not just the issue on a large scale, but among key potential Democratic voting demographics, it could be a real problem for him, and that's starting to percolate.
Well, yeah, so a couple of things about that, right? And I want to clarify. We're not talking about, we're not making any allegations. We're not doing any conspiracy theory. We're not saying great replacement theory. We're not talking about anything of any kind of these different theories on that. That being said, when you have this massive, almost unending wave of barely checked, I'm not going to say unchecked, but seemingly barely checked immigration, where I think I've seen something like, someone said, I don't know if this is right or wrong. Maybe this is wrong. Maybe I misheard it. But I thought I heard something to the effect of like 40,000 Chinese nationals last month. Okay, who's coming? Nobody knows who's coming over. Nobody knows about any COVID status, or if there are any kind of potential security threats. Who knows? There's been reports about people flying from all over the world, landing in Ecuador, then landing in Tijuana, and then going through the different fence. They basically showed, I can't remember if it's MSNBC or Fox News or one of these, like they literally showed the point where they're coming in, and they had the drones out there and whatnot. There was a border agent there, not talking to anyone, just standing there basically. And so you have that where it's just pretty unchecked. At the same time, to Paul's point, to clarify that, and he can speak for himself, but to try to put my point on it, regardless of how big your heart is or what your politics are or anything like that, or how you feel about like globalism versus nationalism and borders in general. And again, a lot of people have made this point. I love the way, we love the way that like the borders of Ukraine, super important, cannot violate them. Borders, different places, really, really important, can't violate them. The biggest thing, okay, very, very crucial. Borders of the USA, come on in. Come on in. Come on in, and not only come on in, we're not going to stop you. You're going to get free health care. You're going to get free meals. You're going to get transportation. You're going to get all kinds of stuff. And the point of it is we could all be for everything, land of immigrants, absolutely Statue of Liberty, clause, and all of these things, but there's only so much room. There's only so much money. There's only so many schools. They can't instantly build 1,000 new schools across the country. They can't instantly build 10,000 more, hotels, and et cetera, et cetera. And as Paul says, who is getting displaced? It's the people in the urban centers. It's the people that are not super rich, that don't live in gated communities, that don't live on the Hamptons, that don't live different places. It really reminds me, Paul, in some respects, of how out of touch, how it's like Marie Antoinette, let them eat cake, kind of, type of vibe on it, French aristocracy kind of vibe on it. When the BLM protests and the Antifa protests were going all over California, and they were, people were getting, unfortunately, beaten up on the streets, and they were looting and doing different things, and they were going different neighborhoods in LA. And I remember they had the chopper, and they were showing that. But all of a sudden they came up and they were ready to go. They were ready to go into Beverly Hills and Rodeo Drive. And before it was hands off. It was low police, low levels of policing. It was different. But when they were about to go into Rodeo Drive in Beverly Hills, the blue they had a line of blue right there. There was all there. We had significant law enforcement ready to go. They shut that down. You're not coming in here. It reminds me of what's going on now. And listen, again, credit to, Super D, Ronnie D, Governor D, who basically outsmarted in many ways the Democrats and caught a lot of flack from it. When he, as you said, NIMBY, not in my backyard, when he and Governor Abbott put the migrants on the buses, sent them to New York, sent them to Chicago, sent them to Martha's Vineyard, most famously. They got them out of there very quickly. You're not hanging out in Martha's Vineyard. Not in my backyard. Do as I say, don't do as I do. Liberalism and hypocrisy go hand in hand. That is all part of it, in my opinion. Paul, final comments before we break.
Yeah, look, when I converted and began to convert to conservatism over a decade and a half ago, one of the first things I started to realize was there's real cost to things. There's there's a reality that there are finite resources. So you can have all the happy plans in your mind, but you have to actually be able to execute them, and there are limitations to that. What you said about the unrest in the past in California, one of the things that shocked me and woke me up about how serious it was when I started seeing issues in Walnut Creek. You and I both know Walnut Creek very well. It's East Bay out there. Walnut Creek is a pretty well-to-do area.
So time out. Let me step in here because I just want to make a point. This is very important for the Newstalk 1040 audience. To analogize Walnut Creek, think of Sarasota, quite frankly, where I'm at. Think of Sarasota. Great schools, suburb, big money, kind of a city unto itself, has stuff out there, very well-to-do, beautiful outdoor mall, boardwalk, Broadway Plaza out there. I mean, you have a lot of professional athletes that live out there in that area. San Ramon, Danville, Alamo, Walnut Creek, everything. I mean, it's very beautiful. Maybe Wesley Chapel, a little bit like that too. I mean, it is a gorgeous place, very high-end type of situation. And with that context, just think of, when you think of Walnut Creek, think of Sarasota. I think that makes the most, without the water, I think that makes the best point right there. Go ahead, Paul, continue.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it in context. But even though there started being issues at Walnut Creek, which was very alarming, you're not going to have issues in Black Hawk. You're not going to have issues in the better parts of Los Altos. And I can make the analogy of parts of Florida for that. But you started seeing, this is creeping up to, levels that we didn't think that it was going to, places that we didn't think it would be. And that's when I started thinking, man, this is really serious, and in a good developmental, this is great for transformation, in a, wow, this is not good type of a way. So, yeah, I think it's as you said, there are real challenges here and real questions about where all this is going, and I don't know. I mean, we're going to see where it goes.
We got a break. I love it. Great comments, Paul. We're going to talk about it. Next hour, we're going to talk about the RNC. We're going to talk about all kinds of different things. Changes are happening. You're listening to John D. Villarreal Radio Show here on Newstalk 1040, live on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, and X. Stay tuned. 506. We'll be back out at you. Stay tuned.
Your home for news, talk, and information.
1040 WHBO Pinellas Park.
Tampa Bay's all new News Talk 1040.
It's the only
Hey everybody, what's going on? It's me, John D. Villarreal, at the John D. Villarreal Radio Show here on live on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, and X, and of course, Newstalk 1040, sponsored by Sarasota Subaru, Maserati and Alfa Romeo of Sarasota. My general manager, Tim Reher, was in here. We appreciate Tim, and we appreciate you. I also want to tell you something right now. We're doing a special event for Sarasota Subaru, where this is Subaru Loves to Help. And this is Operation Warm. We're going to deliver, and we're going to donate some coats to Operation Warm to help out, do what we can to help out the good people here of Sarasota and people that may, that need some help. And we're all about charity here at the Doherty Auto Group, and charity here at Sarasota Subaru, and of course Subaru Loves to Help. So I definitely wanted to say that and put that out there. Very important, and we appreciate being involved in that. And Tim and everyone here, I will be there. It's going to be 11 o'clock on Wednesday in Sarasota. So we're going to try to get some good footage of that, and I will be there. And we're welcome to come on out here, Newstalk 1040 audience, and be a part of that. We're talking to Paul at Villarreal. Last hour we were talking about the Nikki Haley loss in South Carolina, the primary. I just saw something I was walking by out there during the break. I saw where President Trump is asking Leader McConnell for an endorsement. And this is really what it is now. We're going to get into this. I mean, Ronna McDaniel is stepping down after Super Tuesday from the RNC. President Trump had his pick of who's going to put in. Very, very common, by the way, is that, whoever the primary is leading, the presidential candidate or the president is the leader of the party, and they basically, usually have their people in the party apparatus. And there's been some friction points between Ronna McDaniel and Trump a little bit, but definitely between, Ronna McDaniel and Trump supporter and Trump surrogate, probably best Trump surrogate right now, other than, maybe, Donald Jr. But honestly, no, we definitely respect you, Don Jr. But, Vivek Ramaswamy, I can't think of a better surrogate right now, and indefatigable. He can't be fatigued. He's out there. He's really just, going to all kinds, going to the Breakfast Club and going to barbershops and doing podcasts and all over the place and at CPAC and just doing a great job. And Governor D is out there as well. Governor DeSantis is out there and doing it. And I really feel that, we needed new leadership, and we've needed new leadership for a long time. A leadership that it's not just about Trump, not Trump. It's a leadership that understands where the election is going to be, where the election battle is going to be fought, if you will, with the mail-in voting, with the ballot and all that type of stuff, with the new media, with the new messaging. And it just seemed like the RNC was completely out of touch. So getting new leadership is very important right there. And so I guess it really, and again with Governor Haley, so running, it really begs the question, Paul, joined by Paul Villarreal, who is big on Twitter out there, X. Do you think that there is a come to Jesus moment, if you will, quote unquote, with the GOP? Is the establishment Republicans, are they finally understanding what's what? Are they going to get on board? Are they going to still just, do this kind of, I don't know. I don't know what not come on board. Maybe a little bit of a resist, hoping they're going to take it back. Like, where do you think that's at?
I think there's a mixture. I think there are still people resisting. On the other hand, you have people like Senator John Thune, who is basically Mitch McConnell's right-hand man in the Senate, came out and endorsed President Trump today or yesterday or today after the results in South Carolina. So I think there are people, or we said with Americans for Prosperity, who are supporting Nikki Haley, their establishment. They are seeing the writing on the wall. There are people doing it. However, we're talking about the RNC, and you talk about Ronna, but Haley Barbour, the old politician from Alabama, Mississippi.
Yeah.
Haley, sure. Haley Barbour
sure I met Haley
is
too. Anyway, it doesn't matter.
Apparently taking the stance of kind of the old guard and the establishment against Trump. He's now a member of the RNC. He came out and pushed for a resolution to be voted on by the group, stating two things. One, that they won't support the legal fees of any candidate. Of course, we know what that means. And number two, that the RNC should not support, formally back a candidate until that candidate has all the delegates. So that's a pushback. They're still trying to. There are people who are still trying to hold this off or kind of run out the clock or whatever you want to call it. They're still resisting Trump. So there are people doing that right now, even with everything that's going on. It seems clear that Trump's going to be the nominee. Like, that's the track that we're on right now. He has a massive amount of support, but there are still people who are playing this game. There are still people who are playing this game. I'm Meghan McCain. I think he made some statements today. Still trying to kind
getting into it with
be
Carrie
in
Lake.
that position.
She and Carrie Lake are getting into it still, right? I mean,
they are.
We'll talk about that in a second. Let me drop this real quick. Very interesting. I want you to pick it right back up. Very interesting, Paul, because we've got no less than Joe Longren. I hope I remember the last name right. I do apologize. Former founder of Palantir, who now has his own venture capital fund, who wrote an article co-authored by none other than Jeb Bush, former governor of Florida and brother of former President Bush, supporting President Trump with this extreme, in my opinion, judgment with Judge Engoron in New York, with the $355 million, with the interest and stuff could eclipse $400 million, saying that because business people like Grant Cardone, like Kevin O'Leary from Shark Tank, Grant Cardone from Undercover Billionaire, and all kinds of other stuff. People are very concerned, and the business leaders feel like this is political. Some have said this is political targeting. This is too much. Longren, and in fact, there was a good interview with Longren where he just, they tried to push him on this with it was, I think, Smerconish. It was Michael Smerconish of it was a CNN, I think, and he was just, Smerconish was plain devil's advocate, and Longren was just crushing him. And this article was penned, co-authored by Jeb Bush, supporting former Governor Bush, supporting President Trump in this fight. It's interesting where you see the Nikki Haley's, the Haley Barbers on the one hand, and then on the other hand, you see DeSantis and even Governor Bush and others. And as you said, Cornyn, I don't know. I think the clock's running out on these never Trump types, Paul. Politically.
Yeah, I think so too. Right. I agree with you. Look, it's not just right now. It's that the party has shifted. It has realigned to more of a multi-group, working class type of party. And that has to do with the fact that the Democratic Party has shifted from that to more of a coastal elite, professional or high educational party. And so the GOP just kind of was reacting to what happened with the Democratic Party, in my opinion. So yes, there are still people, there are still the old guard establishment elites who want to have things the way that they used to be, but that's not what's going to happen. Intelligent people like Governor Bush, like you said, the Palantir man, they know that. They understand that. And if Trump can get put through the ringer in New York State, well, so can Bush. So can any other conservative if New York wants to do that. Nobody really wants to exist in that type of environment. And then it'll just become a Hatfield and McCoy situation where, okay, we prosecute the Democrat in the red state and you prosecute the Republican in the blue state. Nobody wants to live in that. And that's just a little bit too much. So hopefully over time.
That's a lot. It's a lot too much. That's what I'm saying. Like this seems like very targeting. I think President, and I kind of was hinting at it a little bit, but I can't take full credit for it and stuff like that. But this kind of, it just instinctually I knew from concerts. I mean, and the Eighth Amendment argument I think is phenomenal because it does seem like cruel and unusual punishment. It does seem like you and also 14th Amendment. You can't have with equal protection. You can't have. I mean, I gotta double check. I'm probably gonna get a lot of stuff wrong here. And again, I'm not speaking as a talk show host, not licensed in Florida, not practicing in Florida, et cetera, et cetera. But if you do not have equal application of the law, if you have a fine that seems so egregious, does that violate the 8th Amendment? Does that violate the 14th Amendment with equal protection? It's really bad because you don't have a victim here. Everyone's been paid back. It's like, well, you got to benefit. I mean, it's just such a stretch. And in fact, in Goron and stuff and other people, and again, you had a prosecutor that basically ran on getting Trump, and they got Trump. And so, if you have these comments like that, it seems like, you want to inflict this. Well, how do I want to say this? Let me revise and extend that. You can't ramp up the penalties to the extreme just because the guy's a billionaire. And then someone said it better than I do right now, that it would have been, the judgment would have been more credible if it were like 5 or 11 million as opposed to almost 400 million. You know what I mean? Like, it just looks very suspicious, or as the kids would say, very sus, right? And so it does not look, it looks, it feels, and I'm not alleging anything, but you could see where someone could make the argument that this could look or could feel like targeting. And in an election year, political targeting. And again, Byron York, Jack Smith, special prosecutor Jack Smith, is in a hurry. He just can't say why. And it's just all these different things. It's very bizarre. So where do you think, and Trump has appealed that, what is the status of this New York case, Paul?
Yeah, it's exactly what you said. President Trump appealed the decision today of the Engoron civil case, and that's happening right now. I don't know what the appeals process is. Like, I think there are 2 different courts that he can appeal to in that jurisdiction. I guess it could potentially go to the Supreme Court if it involved, as you said, like 8th Amendment or 14th Amendment considerations. We'll have to see how that goes. There are people that are hopeful that it will be overturned in the New York system. There are people who are not hopeful. So I'm not sure about that. We mentioned earlier in the show that there was breaking news that Alvin Bragg, Manhattan DA, was seeking a gag order on Trump. Why? Why would you do that? Why now? Why? I mean, what did Trump say to try to trigger that? So this is kind of like, again, it's kind of like one goes into the next, goes into the next, goes into the next here. It does, to many people, look political about the election or seeking to potentially affect the election. And I talk to a lot of people that are not, or I see people talking about this on Twitter, who are not particularly super political, and they don't like this. They don't like the legal stuff that's being done against Trump. They feel like it just seems a little bit out of bounds, or it's kind of taken on too big of a life of its own. There's one thing if you say, okay, he did this or he did that, but it's like suddenly he's, 90 indictments in an election year. What's that? It just doesn't seem like it fits, and I think a lot of people sense that or feel that.
Well, we saw it before. The first time he ran, we had 24 women and all these people coming out of the woodwork and everything, and everyone wants to claim everything. And then when he got elected, so much of it went away. And it just feels like, here's the thing. At a certain point, things need to equalize. You know what I mean? The system wants some kind of balance, meaning that, like, this is extreme. You can't have this. You can't have this. And then other people said, Joe Longren said that too. He said that in a piece. This looks like what you'd seen in an emerging market. And how do I want to say this? I want to be, somewhat politically correct on this. I'll use Longren. I think that's a good way to put it. You know what I mean? And, emerging market, is basically somewhere that's up and coming, but it's nowhere close to like America and other places like that. In other words, like, there's a lot of things that happen, a lot of other places that may be extra legal, that basically, like, you know, where you're putting your political opposition in prison, where you're seizing people's assets, where you're just doing whatever. You know, where there's a lot of potential corruption and stuff like that. It's just, I mean, there's different places, different things happen in different places around the globe. Some of it's great, some of it's not so great. So, I mean, same thing here, but it's different. And we don't, there's places, you know, we are the envy of the world in our system. We do not want to emulate some of these places that are maybe, as Long would say, the emerging markets in that respect. Okay. And so it's, and again, not generalizing, for peace, freedom, love, opportunity, equality for everybody, right? And we have a wonderful, or we at least had a wonderful political system and a constitution and a legal system. And when you have political targeting, potential, allegedly, possibly, hypothetically, political targeting, if it were to exist, of an opposition party, that is an extremely dangerous situation. It doesn't matter you don't like Trump. I mean, in other words, if people feel like Trump got more severe prosecution, scrutiny, all these different cases against him, and think about it. 2 years ago, whatever it was, there was like almost no cases against Trump. And all of a sudden, all this stuff sprung up. What has happened? He announced he's running again. You know what I'm saying? Like where was all this stuff 2 years ago? They literally rewrote the statute of limitations, like almost like a bill of attainder, to charge Trump in New York, and then changed it back. And in fact, Governor Kathy Hochul said, basically a paraphrase, "Don't worry, New Yorkers. Don't worry, business people. This is a one-off. This is just Trump." Is a very, very rough paraphrase, and definitely not a direct quote or anything close to that, in my opinion. What are you just saying? And again, you had a prosecutor who ran saying she was going to get Trump. This is craziness. And so in this environment, is the appellate court in New York going to fix this? Is the Supreme Court of the United States going to fix this? Or also, what about the level of political pressure and business pressure? Because if it's not fixed, a lot of people are going to say, I'm getting out of here. Anyone that's like moderate or Republican or conservative, like, I gotta get out of here. And it's not just Trump. I mean, that as Joe Longer said, look at what they're doing to Elon Musk. That's part of why he wrote it, because, you know, Palantir and I think like a lot of those, Peter Thiel, Palantir, and obviously forward PayPal and everything like that, and Elon Musk, PayPal. And so this just raises just huge questions about what's going on and what our system is. I mean, the entire system is threatened. And that's why, you know, these never Trumpers, you got to cut off the never Trump. It's not never Trump. It's only Trump. Because nobody else, first of all, he's winning the delegates, and that's it. It's basically effectively over. And pretty much even the news media is saying that. Paul, jump in. But secondly, like this is a direction. You can think Trump's like the biggest idiot, and I don't like him, and he's in the tweets and the mean tweets and whatever. And he's so, you know, again, boastful and whatever. Who is happy with this direction? And in fact, the right track, wrong track numbers are as extreme as they've been for a long time. People aren't happy about this. We'll talk about the economy and everything in the last segment, the 530 block. But I mean, this is a bad situation where people are not happy whatsoever. But you can't have a system where it feels like some people could feel like there's political targeting, there's judicial lawfare targeting, there's excessive fines. It just seems crazy. And the more they fight against Trump and try to get you off Trump, the more it's showing their hand of a deep state, of an insiders that are just not going to allow people to vote for him. And they tried that, right? Colorado. That's still, you know, they had arguments. That was silly. We're just going to take him off the ballot. Maine Secretary of State, yep, that's just, you know, I don't like what he's doing. We're just going to take him off the ballot. You know, election denier or whatever. I mean, this just insanity. And E. Jean Carroll talking about going on a shopping spree with Rachel Maddow. You had a $5 million, kind of somewhat similar, $5 million judgment. Trump says himself, oh, okay, we're going to make it $80 million or whatever it is. It's just craziness. Paul, what are your comments?
Yeah. Nobody wants to live under authoritarianism. And the last
Right.
few years, there's been feelings like, no, maybe we can't say what we want to say. Maybe if we do say what we want to say, the social media people or the companies are going to take it down.
Well,
Hey, we can't talk
time
about
out real
Hunter
quick
Biden.
on that. Time out real quick on that. We're going to talk about, very, very carefully, mind you, this Google AI thing. You want to talk about an explosive scandal. And I mean, Paul and I, well, it's my channel, but I mean, my channel on YouTube, I was way ahead of the game. We were crushing it. I mean, crushing it. And listen, maybe you think our stuff is good, our videos are good, maybe you think that they're terrible, whatever like that. But I mean, I'm just telling you, it was crushing. I mean, just many, many views, and all of a sudden, boom, just plummeted. Does anyone, I mean, now we know Russell Brand would go on down the list. Yeah, there's some conservatives that are winning. There's some conservatives that are doing okay on YouTube. But I mean, dude, with this latest, we'll get into it. Probably the last block. I mean, maybe half the last. I mean, and I didn't want to interrupt, but I mean, with this latest story, holy smokes! And people think that AI and everything's going to take over everything. Maybe, but I mean, it's only as good as what you put in there. Now with these, I mean, there's been some very wacky stuff going on with this AI. Paul, continue your thought.
Yeah. So, look, again, people don't want a system where a finger is being put on the scale, or maybe it's being put on a scale, or it feels like it's being put on the scale from those in power. Whoever it is, whether it's a social media company, the government, opposition party, anybody. People want to be able to have free speech, want to be able to express what they want to be able to support who they want, and so forth. And that's been, in my opinion, that's been a challenged concept for the last, 15 years or so, or 10 years, or whatever it is. We've seen people who can't talk, give speeches at colleges. We've seen all kinds of things. What you talked about with our own situation. This has happened to many other people. So I saw today an account on Twitter that basically said, look, here's something I wrote a few years ago, and they sent me a takedown notice of what I said. It was something completely harmless and just legitimate, but you couldn't say that then on Twitter. And now, fortunately, under Elon, you can. But it's what Reagan and other people have said. You're only one generation away from losing your freedoms and losing your free society. So you've got to be vigilant and you've got to keep working on it. And unfortunately, that's where we're at right now, in my opinion.
No doubt about it. Lots to talk about. You're listening to the John D. Villarreal radio show here on Newstalk 1040 a.m. over the greater Tampa Bay area. Also live on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, and X. Last segment coming up, players. Get ready. We're going to talk about economy. We're going to talk about Google AI, all kinds of other stuff. Stay tuned. We'll see you in 6 minutes.
with Cole Swin.
Hey everybody, what's going on? It's me, John D. Villarreal. Last segment, John D. Villarreal radio show here on Newstalk 1040 live on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, and X. A lot of stuff that we're talking about. Ronna McDaniel with the RNC is stepping down. New leadership. Is it going to be enough? Can this help us win, meaning the Republicans? Can it help the Republicans win in 2024 right here with President Trump? A lot of things going on with the economy. We're going to get into that. Now, first of all, I want to clarify. We're talking about the Google Gemini AI. Huge fallout on that, no doubt about it. And we talked about it on YouTube and everything like that. I mean, listen, who knows? I mean, we've, first of all, done really well and can't complain. You know, not super well, not well enough where that can be my full-time thing and I don't do anything else, but it was a full-time thing for a while, but definitely have done well on that and have done well on other stuff that we've done online. Way, way better than most people ever will. But, yeah, I mean, it's, you know, listen, I mean, I'm not making, so I want to be clarified. You know, love YouTube, Google, everything like that, but you know, we got our criticisms. We got our criticism players. You know what I'm saying? Because I mean, and it's hard to, when you see this article about the Google Gemini AI, I mean, how do you defend that? And garbage in equals garbage out. Is there an agenda in big tech? I mean, hard to say that there's not. You know, we see the Twitter files and you see where the donations go, and you see, and there's a lot of people that, you know, wouldn't surprise, I'm not alleging anything, wouldn't surprise me if there's some on the left that are pushed pretty hard, and you're not going to, and meanwhile, you've talking about like shadow banning and deranking and detrending and all that, you know, all these different things and the canceling that happens on the right. You don't see it on the left. You don't see it anywhere near as much on the left. So on the one hand, we're not making excuses because there's other people that are doing well out there that are on the right, whether it's Benny Johnson, you know, Ben Shapiro, Dave Rubin, Glenn Beck, Steven Crowder. There's a lot of people that are doing really, really well. And they're doing well on YouTube. Patrick Bet David. But, you know, I mean, at the same time, it was a little bit disconcerting. We were canceled before anyone even knew what that was or even thought that was a thing or thought that was anything other than a little crazy tinfoil hat and stuff like that. Let me revise that. I'm not going to say that it happened, but it wouldn't surprise me that it happened. Like I mean, I don't want to relive that here because we have a final segment here, but I mean, we'll talk about that again another day. But a bunch of weird stuff. We started doing, you know, started crushing it on YouTube, just growing like sometimes 10, 20, 30% per month, just millions of views, just exploding. You know, people thought we were heavily funded and everything. People would call me up and call Paul up, and people were trying to cover us, and you know, New York Times covered Paul, New York Times covered me, you know, blah, 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 all different things. And started doing videos on President Obama, and they weren't really supporting President Obama, and it just, boom, things shut down really quick. Things shut down in Silicon Valley. Weird articles being, you know, people like fake stuff was being put up against me that was, I would consider, I'm not talking technically illegally, but I'm just saying like a term of art, you know, kind of defaming, slanderous type of stuff. Some, you know, some really nasty stuff in my opinion. Also had articles, a bunch of stuff written about me that like, dude, I didn't even know these people. And they're just taking these big runs at me. I was getting weird calls. People threatening to dox me. You know, people, major heavy duty reporters covering Paul. I mean, just a bunch of weird stuff happened all in a real cluster. Kind of like what's happened to Russell Brand. Kind of like what's happened to Joe Rogan at different times, kind of like what's happened to Andrew Tate, kind of like what's happened to President Trump. And I'm not defending anyone. I'm not saying we're analogous or anything, but it's just a bunch of weird stuff was happening all at one time. There is a playbook. There is an AstroTurf playbook. There is this, you know, what do they call them? Fear, uncertainty, doubt, you know, freeze, isolate the target, freeze them, this and that. Just weird stuff. I mean, this is Chicago politics. This is AstroTurf. This is nasty stuff. And they love to control the online, the cultural Marxism. This is a big deal. So when I saw that thing with Google AI, no surprise. When you've got social media, this is why it's so important. What's going on with Elon Musk? It's so important what's happening out there in terms of having a free speech platform with X. And you remember that the lawyer who was a graduate of Cornell. Half my family went to Cornell, including Paul. And it was immediate family and I guess in-laws. Because my sister met her husband there. Anyway, it doesn't matter. And she was on Rogan, like, with Jack Dorsey. Oh no, it's all good. This is an extreme paraphrase in my opinion. But basically, it was just, people were asking. You have Tim Pool there asking some hard questions and just putting them off and patting them on the head. And then, and there was a big fight. Can't let Elon take it over. Can't let Elon take it over. Why? What's the big deal? This is someone who's been super successful in Silicon Valley. Someone that knows what's the big deal. You're a public company. You can have, and finally Elon gets it. And all of a sudden we find that Taibbi and others, we find the Twitter files, and it's as the rough paraphrase quote, not a quote, but the rough paraphrase of the quote was, whatever you think about from Elon about the what was happening, and it's even worse. It's even worse than you think. That's why this is so important, Paul. When I saw this Google AI, Gemini AI story, not surprised, dude. Not surprised. And you see the tweets out there about the lead, one of the leads in that whole effort. And it's sad, dude, because Google is such a phenomenal company. And listen, I mean, made a lot of money on YouTube, love YouTube and everything like that. I know people over, or at least it did, over at Google, even some people really high up at Google, very high up actually. And it's not that I get Christmas cards or anything like that, but I mean, it's just, as I like to say, I'm nobody. I just know a lot of things, and I know a lot of people. There's not too many sectors that I don't know some high up people. Okay, at least in the things that I care about. I mean, I don't. There's a ton, actually, let me remind. There's a ton of stuff that's not true, because there's in the sectors that I care about, right? And I guess that's how it is in life, right? I mean, nobody. I have my little sliver of things that I'm. It doesn't matter. I don't want to get distracted. It's sad. Because this is how crazy things have gotten. This is people want, and all of these stories relate to one concept. That should be a very American concept. People want a fair shot. People want a level playing field. People don't want to be bullied and persecuted for their religious beliefs, for their political beliefs. That is exactly what this country was founded on. Why do you think there was a Bill of Rights with the First Amendment, that free speech shall not be abridged? By who? By government. And now we're talking about these backdoors into these companies. We're talking about these relationships. If you talk about Michael Benz was talking to, went through that whole thing about how involved government has been and defense and has been. Paul, where are we at on this? I mean, how big of a story do you make with this Google AI?
Well, it's a huge story. I mean, it's a massive story. It blew up on online, particularly on Twitter, but various places, and they had to kind of come in and defend it and so on. It's not just. It's not, and it was different aspects. There were pictures involved. That what they,
right.
If you ask them a question, these are the pictures that the output that you get. Also text. There were comparisons like, hey, is Elon Musk as bad as this historical figure? I mean, just ridiculous things, just absurd.
And let me just. Sorry, Paul. I apologize. I want to hear your comments, and everyone in Newstalk 1040 and live on LinkedIn, Facebook, X. Obviously, you have a big audience on X, and LinkedIn wants to hear what you have to say as well. But I just want to be very. Heads up too. My daughter. I see my wife and my daughter pulling out. We may have a little 6.5-year-old running in here in a second, players. And I'm gonna. We were thinking about, do we want to cover this and stuff? But so I want to be very cautious on how I characterize this. But I'll just say it this way: you can easily go see the articles out there. It's very easy to see this on the Google Gemini AI. The AI seemed very woke, like almost extremely woke in certain situations. And it didn't seem very accurate at all in certain situations. And it seemed like things were skewing left, and therefore, so, people talk about AI. I mean, that's the number one rule with computers and computer programming is garbage in equals garbage out. I'm not maybe not number one, but definitely, a rule out there, in my opinion, or saying. And when you have this, what should be cutting edge artificial intelligence that's spewing out very woke stuff that is not historically accurate, where you literally, I believe, if the story is right, Paul, and I'll turn right back over to you, you could not get it to be historically accurate. And then you had some things that were characterized a certain way with like you said, Elon Musk versus President Biden. Like, you couldn't get it to say anything bad about President Biden. Well, what's bad about it? And it seems when you have artificial intelligence that didn't seem too intelligent and seemed pretty skewed, that's a bad look, in my opinion.
It is a bad look. I mean, and people just don't. Again, it's not even that it's not fair; it's not accurate. I mean, that's the thing is. I think it's from Orwell, one of Orwell's works, that's he who controls the present controls the past. And so there's a concern here that you're going to try to influence the mind of people, not just about what's happening now, but what did happen. And if you're going to do that, then maybe you can influence about what's going to happen. So there's definitely a very serious, there's concern about this. And now Google again had to, I guess they shut the program down or shut the thing down. They're going to try to rework it or whatever like that. But the good aspect of this, in one respect, is that people saw it and they pointed it out. And that's what you need to do in these circumstances, rather than it just kind of slides in and does its thing. People were aware of this and they saw what happened and they didn't like it. And we know with the Twitter files, one of the things there was kind of a sense that almost with the way that Twitter was being kind of shaped and curtailed, it almost created a sense of a fake reality. Like, what was happening wasn't really what was going on because it was being so censored and so shaped. Well, that's what
some have
people,
called
I
it
think,
a
are concerned
Potemkin
about
village.
with AI. Yeah, a Potemkin village type of situation. If you can give people false history, that's not necessarily a really great outcome.
And as you said, one of the things here, and one of the maybe potential benefits, if you will, a silver lining maybe is a better way to put it, of this scenario is a lot of people are like, oh, the conservatives, they're making things up. Oh, this is a straw person. Like, that's not real. They would gaslight you. With this Google Gemini AI, you literally could not get the AI to give you accurate information on certain things. And it literally put woke stuff in there. It was almost like South Park entered the Panderverse. It was that kind of thing, where it was just shoving DEI type of imagery into the AI. And the fact that you could not get it to give you accurate information in certain instances, I think made it so you couldn't hide this. You couldn't gaslight. You couldn't try to act like there wasn't something wrong. And for them to have to shut down the program, at least for some period of time, that is devastating.
It is. And what you said is right. Anybody that knows or anybody that works in has done any type of programming or whatsoever, it's exactly what you say. Garbage in equals garbage out. If you tell the thing to do if you give it certain parameters that are woke or that are not accurate, then that's what you're going to get as output. And that's what seemed to have happened here. And as you said, it's good because there's no way around this. You are getting historically inaccurate results. So there's no way to hide it or pretend that wasn't what was happening, because that was what was happening. And we're going to have to see it going forward. And it's not just Google AI. There are other AIs too. And there have been, some man just put up a thing saying Google's not even the wokest. Here's a couple other ones that are more woke. And we're going to have to look at this, because even though I believe we kind of are starting to come out of the kind of wokest moment of the current era, there are still people who want to, if you have influence over high, important educational institutions, if you have influence over AI algorithms, you can still have effect on things, even if the country has kind of moved on from that moment. And that's what we're talking about here, is being able to kind of keep our freedom moving forward so that we're not subject to whims that may have been in vogue a few years ago.
Well, no doubt about it. And in fact, let me say a couple things right now. I mean, people still lean on technology, and it's great. But technology, unfortunately, particularly with this, where you have to write the program and you have to, write the code, the algorithms for the AI and all these types of the rules, if you will, for how it's going to operate. It's like, dude, garbage in, garbage out. We already talked about that. If it's filled with, there's this idea on the right of just hands off. If it's filled with this super leftist stuff, it's devastating. In the world where it's controlled by the AI and the algorithms, you will never get a fair shake as a conservative. The political battle is here. This is why I have one of the biggest criticisms I have of Miami Tech, quote unquote Miami Tech. Okay, obviously there's some tech in Miami, but just anyway, I would refer you to my old stuff on that. We don't have time. We have to finish this segment to re-up all of that. But the biggest problem that one of the biggest problems that I had with that whole scene was it was just all woke tech. It doesn't matter. Yeah, all the DEI stuff, all the woke stuff, all that. Just come on in here and bring your money. If you don't fight the battle politically, rhetorically, communication-wise, hearts and minds and stuff like that, to go use, Ronald Reagan type of talking points, you'll never win. You'll never win. Because look at how this AI and stuff is being written. Like, you can't get accurate results. You literally have a whole class of people that are indoctrinated in these schools. You have generations, rather. Let me revise this. Generations that have been indoctrinated. You have people that think that the world is going to end. You have some people that thought it was already going to end. That it's going to end in a year from now, or 5 years from now, or whatever it is. And they keep changing it. The goalposts keep moving. That they think that the U.S. is polluting more. It's actually greenhouse gases for the U.S., I believe, if I saw this right, are actually going down. But they're exploding for China and India. Where's Greta Thunberg? I didn't see Greta Thunberg land her private jet over there in China and protesting over there. I haven't seen that yet. I'm not sure how that would go. Might not go the same way as it goes here or at the UN. Might be a little different over there. Okay? And so, what I'm saying is, if you don't fight the battles politically, if you don't deal with tech, if you don't deal with the extreme, in some cases, with the left bias, if in some cases extreme leftward bias of tech, you'll never get this done. You've got to get. This is what I'm talking about. This is how all this stuff relates. Whether it's the Engoron judgment, and Trump, the New York case, all this stuff. You've got to get politics out of the legal business. You've got to get politics out of tech. You've got to get politics out of business. All this stuff. This is ruining us. It is making us less competitive. I don't care how you feel about Trump and stuff like that. If we keep going down this road of just mindlessly watching TikTok, of this hyper-partisanship, of this, our side and their side and jailing, we will get passed up. We will get crushed in the marketplace by other countries that are not indulging in this craziness. And in fact, that's if you look about the BRICS versus the U.S., we talked about this with the person that knew Malai, that president of Argentina now. We've talked about this with Simon Atiba. We've talked about this in different cases. I mean, are we going to be the last days of Rome in this country, or are our best days ahead of us? That is what's on the ballot. And that's why when you see Nikki Haley with no path to victory, who's been talking about, I'm conservative and all this type of stuff for years and years, and the people with the magazines and Conservative Inc., If you can't get on board now, you've never been on board, in my opinion. Paul, what are your comments on that? Is that too strong?
No, I think that's right on. And look, one thing we know from the left, in my opinion, is that they're not going to stop. They might might have a temporary setback, then they'll kind of rewire and they'll kind of comment from a different angle philosophically, but they're going to kind of keep working. And that means that if to hold the line against some of that and preserve freedoms and kind of the system that we want, a non-authoritarian one and so forth, we need to keep working. We need to preserve, as Reagan said, we need to be vigilant of these things. And when it comes to somebody like Nikki Haley, as you're saying, look, it seems like you might be thinking about yourself and your situation and not thinking about the bigger picture. I know that is the criticism you've had about certain figures involved with Miami Tech.
Correct.
Hey, what if you bring in a bunch of people who have different values than the ones that people in Florida have? What if you make Florida into a blue situation rather than a red situation, and that's not what people want?
Or at
some
least
of the
with
people
the tech
involved
jobs
don't seem to care about that.
Yeah, at least with the tech jobs and the venture capital jobs and the power centers and who's talking and who's getting celebrated and who's, and that's the thing. I mean, if you to this day, if you look at what's being promoted, heavily promoted in the Miami Tech or the one region down there, it's all, you couldn't distinguish it much from what you'd see promoted in San Francisco or Silicon Valley or other places in terms of the woke agenda. It's everything. It's a heavy push towards climate, diversity, you just on down the list. And there's nothing wrong with those things. That's great. We're all for everybody. We're for peace, love, freedom, opportunity for everyone. But if that's your main criteria, it's like, what about your business? Is your business good? Oh, well, it's the first. It's just, we're having pitch competitions in clubs where it's just, the money's flowing. And again, it not unlike Nikki Haley, and surprise, surprise, Mayor Suarez apparently was being potentially, reportedly, if I remember correctly, not alleged anything, vetted as Nikki Haley's VP. Okay, so maybe birds of a feather, or maybe bird brains of a feather. I don't know, as it might be, as Trump might say. I don't want to talk out of, I'm not alleging anything. We're having a fun here with the radio show. Okay, the criticism of Nikki Haley by Vivek is Nikki equals corrupt. Okay. And that you will do. I mean, I think he said it was a extremely tough line that basically, I'm not alleging anything. I'm just trying to repeat the line. It's in my paraphrase, that Nikki Haley is one of those people that would send your sons and your children to die in a foreign war to buy a bigger house. And what the thing with Miami Tech was, and we saw people that were high up involved in promoting their kids that were like, pretty young as board members, this and that, whatever. Like, dude, this looked like the worst mishmash of super woke tech. Okay, think Google generative AI, super woke tech with nepotism, with insider, with public service, private, alleged potentially a private gain. I mean, it was all a mess. And instead of saying, hey, we want to create a space here where everyone can start a company, everyone can do venture capital. It's about the strength of your ideas, not about your political affiliation or whatever identity politics type of thing is going on right now. We don't need any of that. That's why this election is so critical. We have to get back to land of the free, home of the brave. Everyone has an equal shot. We're all in this together, and we're getting back to work, and we're helping each other out. And we're depoliticizing stuff. I tell you, it's never enough time here on the John D. Villarreal Radio Show on Newstalk 1040. So much to talk about. Want to thank Paul. Want to thank my team at Newstalk 1040. Want to thank you, the viewer and the listener, for tuning in. Hope you're having a great week. So much to talk about next week. This is the John D. Villarreal Radio Show on Newstalk 1040, live on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, and X. Have a wonderful week. Stay blessed. We will see you next week.